Hello all! Thanks for joining us on Two Analyzers and Beyond, the talk show where two analyzer folks discuss the process analytics world and topics beyond analyzers. Hi, I am Corentin Thierry, Sales Manager here at BARTEC US for Process Analytical Technology PAT Group, and today we have a very exciting show during which one of my colleagues from our BARTEC ORB facility will be joining me to discuss integration capabilities. As you know, the BARTEC Group manufactures numerous physical property analyzers at both our US and German factories. And although we do analyzers often require more than just the equipment itself. There's a lot of equipment around it, peripheral, that allows this analyzer to work and to be installed in a fully functional setting. So with this being said, I'd like to introduce Dave Allen. Dave, thanks a lot for joining us today. And we're all excited to hear about how BARTEC ORB integrates all analyzers to deliver full turnkey solutions.
Well, thank you, Corentin. Thanks for having me here today. Glad to be here to help be the first guest on your show.
We're always happy to have fellow BARTECians with us on the show.
Well, first of all, about myself, I live in Houston, Texas. I've been in the oil and gas industry for probably 33 years or so now. And I've held different positions. I started as an electrical engineer on the floor, service manager, engineering manager, general manager, a lot of different positions. And for the last 8 years or so, I've worked with BARTEC ORB as director of operations and pretty much do a lot of different sales and application engineering.
So you're the man.
So a couple hobbies, I like to play tennis, water ski, go boating, that type of stuff.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That sounds like a life full of experiences and full of stuff to tell us.
Yeah, can't wait to get started.
So, well, why don't you tell us about what it is that you do at BARTEC ORB and BARTEC US and guide us through the process of, doing integration.
Well, I handle different applications throughout the world. So I get an application for a different project in a certain part of the world, and we look at the different pieces of equipment that may be needed. First, we determine whether if it's in the U.S., it's going to need the CSA certification.
Okay.
Over in Europe and Asia and so forth, then we go into the ATEX and the IECX certifications. So I do the quotations and look over the different applications and come up with a solution pretty much as to whether the customer just needs an analyzer or do they need a full-blown turnkey system, which could be a shelter, a three-sided shelter, a building, what have you.
And so you put together, so when you receive some specifications, you're going to make the decision, well, I shouldn't say the decision, but you're going to be able to interpret or analyze those specifications and recommend the solution that is best fit to the client's needs.
Right, and I provide a lot of different options so that basically the customer can choose whether they want to do that and take the different parts of the solution on themselves, or we can give the whole turnkey solution, say all you need to do is connect your power, your utilities, your sample.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot. Do you also build them at this point?
We build them in the factory at ORB in Chicago.
Are you on the floor with your wrenches?
I'm not the wrench guy, no. I haven't had the wrench out in quite some time.
But I'm sure when you've done it years ago, it's given you a lot of experience on what is feasible and what is not.
A lot of experience, and also in the positions that I've held. being on the floor, starting on the floor, very valuable as far as the bits and pieces that it takes and what it takes to build it.
Yeah.
The service aspect as far as working with customers and making sure that once they get their solution that it's going to work the way they intended. Engineering, working with the different designs of the products that we sell. So yes, I think got a full background of what's going on both in the field and also in the factory.
That's very good. And we share an office half of the time. The other half, you're traveling to Chicago because your home is based here in Houston. So, share with us a bit that process of spending some time here in Houston, some time in Chicago, and how you, in a sense, the benefits it gives you of being able to see firsthand the product, the advancement, and the projects that you're overseeing.
There's nothing beats being in the factory. Just as far as being, touching the instruments and seeing exactly where they are in the production line of production. I do live in Houston, and up until the COVID situation, I was traveling to Chicago on a weekly basis.
Okay.
But now that I'm grounded, so to speak, and living in Houston full time, one aspect from a personal standpoint, it's nice to be home every night.
You get to play more tennis.
Play more tennis, and but from a business standpoint, you just can't beat being in the factory.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, with this being said, I believe you brought pictures since we can't be doing this recording live in the factory, so you can present us.
Yeah, first slide here is we have an analyzer, three-sided shelter that we're working on, some instrumentation that's going to be going into that shelter. So we do the wiring, all the tubing, all the conduit runs. If it's ATEX, IEC-EX, then we have cables and cable glands. But yeah, that's an example of a system going together.
And how big is the factory? How big is the floor where we're building everything?
We're in a facility that's 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
Probably 8,000 square feet of that is assembly space.
Okay.
Where we're actually nuts and bolts and wrenches and putting the analyzers together, testing.
Okay.
And then about 2,000 square feet is office space where we're doing the CAD drawings and software and those type of items.
So here we're seeing one shelter. How many of those shelters would you be able to build simultaneously in our factory based more or less on the size of the picture that you brought with us today?
That shelter is probably about 10, 12 feet wide, and we could probably do 2 to 3 at a time.
Okay. So the output can be quite high, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd say probably 25% of our systems are shelters.
Okay.
And then the other 75% would be just the standalone analyzers on a frame.
So let's take a look at your three-sided shelters. And what can you tell us about this shelter?
Yep, the shelter is a three-sided shelter with an environmental cabinet in the middle there, with the AC system on the left. That's inside that cabinet is the analyzer. That's that we control that probably at the 25-30 C max temperature, and that's a full-blown system. So you've got sample recovery and sample conditioning and so forth also.
On the top of your head, would you be able to say, well, not this specific analyzer, but that setting is generally used more with RVP, Flashpoint, PowerPoint? What would be the common analyzer that would require a three-sided shelter built like this with a AC insulated, AC controlled cabinet?
Pretty much all of them can be, depending on what climate they're going into. They may need AC, they may need heat. they may need both. It
Okay.
just depends on the climate that they're going in. And salt and crude would be a bigger cabinet, but the others would fit in roughly that same size cabinet.
Very good. But you don't only build three-sided shelter, you also build full-size shelters, walk-in
Yep.
shelters.
Walk-in buildings. This happened to be one of our bigger buildings, our biggest building probably. 18 analyzers on the inside of it. The sample conditioning panels on the outside there that you
Did
can
you
see.
say 18?
18 analyzers.
That's a lot of analyzers in one single shelter.
60 foot long shelter.
Wow.
12 foot wide, 10 foot ceilings, full AC. You got the sample panels on the back because there's 5 of them, so there's 5 streams
I see.
coming into that shelter.
And this was built inside our facility also?
No, that shelter was too big to get into our facility.
I see.
And so we built it behind our facility in the common space in the rear.
I certainly hope you built it during the summer months.
It might have started in the summer, but it definitely finished up in the winter. And so yeah, Chicago winter. We had plenty of heaters out there. And,
Did you get a chance to snowproof it?
it probably had some snow that hit that shelter, but now it's in the southern part of the U.S. now, so I don't know if they get snow down there anymore.
Certainly. But you said this is the biggest one, so that probably is not representative of a typical size shelter. A smaller shelter, how many analyzers would you have in a smaller shelter?
I would say typically in a shelter we do probably 2, maybe 3.
Okay, something like this?
That's more a good example of the typical building that we would produce. This one, I don't remember if it had 2 or 3 analyzers on the inside, but on the back there you're having stream switching and sample panels, and the main view there is a sample recovery with the tank and the building air conditioning system there on the top left.
So a lot of auxiliary systems come with the shelters. So it's not only a shelter. There's also a whole range of additional components, I guess you would say, whenever you integrate
Correct.
systems. So would you say that auxiliary systems are more common than shelters, or they come usually all in one, or?
There's typically always a sample conditioning system. Is the main one, and then we probably drop down into sample recovery systems and fast loop pumps. Here's the inside of the shelter. This one has air pumps in it because there was no air available.
Oh, those are the pumps we see at the bottom here on the floor. I see. Yes,
So
I see.
you have air that needs to be provided. So in this occasion, we had to provide the pump.
So what kind of analyzers were those?
These were RVP
Okay,
and VL20.
I see. Okay. Can you tell us more about this auxiliary system that we see here?
Yeah, that's a sample recovery system for that large shelter.
I see.
And
Okay.
so all 18 analyzers came into this one sample recovery system. And the reason it's inside is because there's so many analyzers, we had to keep the atmospheric vent, or the drain at atmospheric pressure. So the closer we can be to the tank, the better.
Is this something you would see commonly, where you have a sample recovery tank inside the building, or does it commonly installed outside?
I would say we see most of the time they're outside.
Safety reasons, I'm guessing, or is there more practical reasons for that?
No, they just typically don't require the climate control.
Oh, yeah.
And so they can be outside, and typically your space in the AC is limited. Here we have some fast loop pumps. This went for a project where they had 5 different streams. So
And those would be installed upstream of the shelter to bring the sample to the analyzer.
Right, typically at the takeoff point. If the takeoff point is close to the shelter or the analyzer, then on the shelter, we would actually mount it onto the shelter.
Okay, so those can do both suction and basically pull sample in or pressurized sample to go all the way to the analyzer.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, here's a manual sampler. So in this situation, the customer wanted to be able to take a pressurized sample to their laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
So they can collect the sample in a 1,000 cc bomb and then take it to the analyzer and not worry about losing the light ends.
And I believe this is quite common because we've seen pictures of multiple shelters by now, and almost all of them had a sample takeoff point.
Yeah, we always provide when we do a sample conditioning system, we give them at least a manual sample tap so that they can pull sample. Some situations where we actually put on the manual samplers and so they can actually draw into a sample bomb.
I see. Yeah, well, that is quite impressive to say the least. Lots of work in there.
A lot of work, a lot of skilled assemblers putting this stuff together. Become very good at bending tube and conduit, and
yes.
really looks professional when it's done.
I guess that's why you don't have me bending tubing, because mine is never straight. As hard as I try.
No, it's a skill. It's definitely a skill and takes some practice.
So one of the things I wanted to ask also, so you were talking about earlier about AutoCAD drawings or SolidWorks, SolidWorks I believe you mentioned. So all of this is designed in-house. We have our BARTEC ORB has its own designs, and these are unique to us.
Yep, and they're custom. Pretty much every project that we get is custom to the customer. It's very rare that anything would ever repeat, especially on a shelter.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So it doesn't matter what you get, we can always provide something.
We can handle it, yes, for sure.
That's a good
3D
thing.
modeling, so we actually have a 3D model that we generate, and also have the 2D drawings and the PDFs for the customer's approval.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So whenever we put a package together, we send it to the customer, they approve it, and then we start construction based on approval of those drawings.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. And
Makes a lot of sense.
if they need the native files, say they're integrator or an engineering firm or what have you, then they can take our solid models and bring them over into their CAD system.
That's really good. Dave, we have a lot more questions for you. We're going to take a small break here, and after the break, we'll go on.
Okay, great.
Equipment's down again. I'm gonna call the supplier. Can't believe they ain't picking up the phone. Can't even leave a voicemail. Hey, Bobby, what's that guy's name again? That one that fixes stuff.
Try the card on my desk. He left the phone number.
All right.
Does this sound familiar? Well, if you had a BARTEC system, this is how this would look.
Equipment's down again. Let me call somebody for some help.
Good afternoon, this is BARTEC. How may I help you today?
Hello, good morning. I'm having issues with one of your systems. Well, thanks for the help. That was very useful. I'm gonna call you again.
Hey, it's our pleasure to help. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, okay?
Not at this time. But you have a nice day.
All right, have a good day.
If this is the kind of customer service you're looking for when buying equipment, then look no further. BARTEC is your solution. Reach out to us and let us brighten your day and solve your problems. Well, welcome back, Dave. Now we have the next series of questions for you. So you showed us that huge shelter that you built, and you've mentioned this is the biggest shelter that BARTEC ORB has done.
Yeah.
This is not something common, or is it or do we get requests for this type of shelter regularly?
No, this was a one-off shelter,
Okay.
Our biggest shelter that we've ever built.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that most of our shelters are in the 2 or 3 analyzer
Okay. Yeah.
size. So, but yeah, the 18 analyzers, that was a monster project.
Well, yeah, yes, definitely. Now, you've been talking about this shelter going to the southern part of the United States. Do you usually ship, or do you usually integrate for the US, for the Americas? Do we ever ship stuff to Europe, to the Middle East, to Asia? I mean, generally speaking, when we integrate stuff, where do we ship it? Or
Okay.
where have we shipped it?
We ship shelters mainly to the US,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll do them also to the Middle East and South America.
Okay.
Asia is pretty much, they have a lot of system integration over there, and typically they will buy analyzer, sample conditioning, maybe fast loop pump. Everything else they'll take care of themselves.
And would you say what is the main reason behind this? Why those 3 regions would purchase shelters, whereas Southeast Asia or Europe does not purchase shelters from the BARTEC ORB facility specifically?
Yeah, I would say Southeast Asia, India, places like that, they have cheap labor, and they're gonna, typically those projects are very price competitive.
Yes.
Yes. There's a lot of competition to land those jobs, and so the price is the main
Yeah, we can compete.
thing. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Have you ever found local regulations and or normatives to be a problem when doing integration jobs for other regions of the world? I know you were mentioning earlier ATEX, ISEX. Shelters can be, I want to say, even more complex. And I mean, I'm sure that between you and the folks at the BARTEC ORB factory, the expertise is there. But
yeah, typically the shelters that we do are all on the CSA side.
Mm-hmm.
The ATEX and IECEX shelters, it's kind of a whole different ballgame. That typically they'll be done in country when they need those type of shelters.
yeah,
So the shelters that have gone out of the U.S. are all of the NEC or CSA
okay.
certification.
And that also explains the regions, I guess, because
Yeah.
they will accept those. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I'm curious about is what is the fanciest or the most complex, however you want to call it, the most unique shelter, or one that particularly sticks in your mind as being very different from the others?
Well, I would say that, always the big one is always the one that you want to talk about or seem to want to talk about. It's just because it was so large and it was, much larger than normal.
You've Texanized too much for someone coming up from the north. Bigger is not always better.
In this case, I think it's always better. But we've, as I said before, all our solutions are unique.
Mm-hmm.
We customize every shelter system to exactly what the customer's looking for. We give them a chance to participate and approve the drawing, so when he gets it, he knows exactly, or should know exactly what he's getting.
True.
And just the different challenges that we have, we're not afraid to tackle anything. I mean, we do stream switching. We have multiple streams coming in sometimes. One analyzer is, switching between 3 different streams. So yeah, I mean, that's the manual sample handlers. Those are always fun to do. We don't always do those. Usually, it's just a manual tap. But yeah, and there's everyone's different, and I guess that's what keeps it interesting.
And so I'm guessing from a material standpoint, stuff like super duplex or coatings for high saline environments are stuff that you've handled in the past, I believe.
Yep, that's been some unique things that we've done. Super duplex, sometimes they want Inconel 625. Anything the customer wants, we're ready to tackle.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And I think a very important question is, so all this time, the pictures we've seen and the discussion we've had has been about BARTEC orb analyzers, but do we integrate systems from other BARTEC facilities or even from other suppliers that have nothing to do with the BARTEC group?
yeah, currently we're integrating some RVP analyzers from our sister company in Germany. And in the past, we've also integrated not competitors, but accessory equipment that the customer may need or want on their shelter. So we'll design the whole package around what their requirements are and what they need, and it gives them an opportunity to go to one place and buy the one purchase order to buy everything.
So that flexibility we're talking about.
We're totally flexible and willing to do what the customer is needing.
Very good. Changing topics a little bit, BARTEC Orb was acquired by the BARTEC Group, correct me if I'm wrong, 6-7 years ago now?
2014.
2014, yeah, so give or take a bit more than 6 years maybe. How have you seen over the years the integration of BARTEC Orb within the BARTEC Group and some of the changes you might have observed? And more recently, we have actually merged the BARTEC Orb with BARTEC US as one single entity for the US. Now we're all one company.
Yeah, I would say that the integration of BARTEC Orb into BARTEC US was the most positive thing that we've had in the last 6 years.
Okay.
In my career, I've had the experience of being on both sides. I've been the guy that bought the competitor, and I've been on the side where I've been bought. So in all these situations, when you have competitors that have been competing against each other for so long, it's hard to stop becoming competitors.
All habits die hard.
Yes, and once you overcome that is when you really get traction and take off.
And so would you say that would you say that we have reached this point by now?
I think that when we became part of BARTEC US, it was the time that we really started to get traction. And I feel that our sister companies are much more willing to work with us and share ideas as we are. Okay. And we're really starting to gain traction.
Well, that's good news. That is very good news. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, right now we're living in a somewhat strange world. Let's put it like that. The current world environment has changed the way we do business. How do you see it from, the BARTEC Orb perspective and from your side specifically? I mean, you said earlier that you cannot go to the factory to follow up on projects, but what are the impacts or consequences or what are you seeing as a change of the way of how we do business?
Well, definitely the way we do business has changed. Without being able to do customer visits, and we've had to pretty much go on Zoom meetings, WebExes, a lot more phone time, trying to stay in touch with customers, a lot of emails. But I think that, and also not being able to go to the factory, as I had mentioned, is you don't get that closure, that personal touch. And so I think that as we get into learning how to talk to our customers a little bit differently, and maybe showing each other's face on a screen is maybe the way we're going to have to do it going forward.
It is. It can be definitely strange. I will admit to that. Can you share with us, I mean, if you can, what's new, what's upcoming, what's exciting that's being kept secret at ORB right now at BARTEC ORB?
I don't know if there's that many secrets, but we are coming out with a new salt and crude analyzer that's in their certification process right now, going through CSA, and it'll have the ATEX and IEC-EX certifications when it's all done. Hopefully we'll have that by the end of the year.
Okay.
We've sold 4 new systems, so we really need to get that certification.
Yes.
There's a few other things going on behind the scenes, probably too early to talk about, but we've done some engineering work and collected some data. And
a teaser, that's always good. Now you give me a reason to have you back on the show in a few months.
Hopefully we'll have some more tricks for you to go out there in your bag, and
I'm always happy to hear that.
We can talk to customers on Zoom meetings.
Yes. Yes. Well, Dave, that's that's all I had for you. I'm very appreciative of you taking the time.
Sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, or something that you feel the public should know about, or any questions or comments you might have?
I guess maybe you could tell us a little something about where you see the market going, and there are any analyzers that solutions that customers are coming towards us now more than any others, and where do you see the market going in the next 6 months to a year?
So that's actually a very interesting question. So part of the issue that had been ongoing for the past few months is that a lot of projects have been either delayed or postponed or flat out canceled. Fortunately for us, in the analyzer world, for the most part, it's been delays. I've had actually very few projects canceled. And what I have noticed that is very interesting is that all the projects related to LNG and LPG are the ones that are, for the most part, full steam on. Everything else might have been postponed, but all those massive facilities that are being built around the world, for the most part, have not incurred any delay, and if they did, it's very minor. So yeah, there's actually a number of things in the work, and I'm hoping that within the next few months I'll have more integration work for you guys to do and more analyzers, because I would say on a refinery standpoint it's a bit slow right now, but the world of LNG and LPG is actually quite frankly moving fast, and fortunately for us, the BARTEC group offers various solutions. I wish we had more, but we offer various solutions that are geared towards this market, and where there's a need, we have a solution. So I would say that with what you mentioned earlier, the inability to travel to visit customers, for me one of the hardest things has been not being able to attend trade shows. And not that we do a lot of business at trade shows, but usually trade shows is where a lot of information is gathered, where you get the feel for any upcoming project, or what is the industry gearing towards, or what customers have in mind. And with us being unable to attend those trade shows where we have all those experts that are talking to each other, it's been a bit complicated to get a feel for really where is our industry going, because I can pick up the phone and call one person, and I will have a very different story from what another person will say at a different company, whereas when they're all together, although they have different projects, you might realize that, well, true, different projects, but in the end, it's geared toward that same thing, whether it's LNG, LPG, as I've mentioned, or a lot of people right now are doing blending optimization, And that's been going on for, I would say, a few years, and it's still in the process. So without mentioning any names, a few of the major refiners are in that process of improving their blending operations all around the world. And some of the projects we've been working on and we've been seeing are a direct result of that improved, or that push to optimize the blending. So yeah, the future will be interesting. I'm curious also to see what's going to happen in the next few months. I'm curious to see if that push for LNG and LPG keeps on going, and when does I would say the terminal and the refinery, the more downstream might not be the right word, but the more plant type operations, when they resume a more normal spending cycle, because yeah, they're pretty silent as of right now. But I would say, yeah, that's really what's perspiring right now of our industry.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Dave, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Enjoyed
much.
being here.
Thanks, Dave. And then thanks all for joining. We'll be seeing you guys soon for our next episode of 2 Analyzers and Beyond. Take care.